Okay, so let's jump right into this. We're going to unpack an ancient story that, honestly, feels more like a modern political thriller. It all kicks off with this huge war between 9 different kings, but it actually ends with a choice between just 2. And believe me, that one choice, it changes the entire meaning of what victory even is. All right, Act 1, the worldly conflict. First things first, we've got to get a feel for the world Abraham was living in. I mean, this was a place of massive, powerful alliances. Rebellions were always bubbling just under the surface, and wow, the consequences for picking the wrong side were absolutely brutal. So here are the players on the board. On one side, you've got this powerhouse Eastern coalition, right? A group of 4 kings, and their leader is this guy Chedorlaomer. Then on the other side, you have 5 local Canaanite kings, including the king of Sodom, who, after 12 years of being basically vassals, decide they've had enough. They're rebelling. Talk about a high-stakes gamble. Well, that gamble doesn't exactly pay off. The rebellion fails. I mean, it fails spectacularly. They get routed in a valley that's literally full of tar pits. Can you imagine? A total tactical nightmare. So the victorious Eastern kings, they just march right on in and plunder Sodom and Gomorrah, taking everything: goods, food, and even the people. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this huge war suddenly becomes personal. See, Abraham's nephew, Lot, gets caught right in the middle of all this chaos. Why was he there? Well, he chose to live near Sodom because, hey, it looked great. It was lush, well-watered, seemed like a smart move for prosperity. But what looks like a safe bet ended up being a one-way ticket to a war zone. It's a heck of a reminder that just because something looks good on the surface doesn't mean it is. And boom, just like that, Lot loses it all. He's captured, his family's captured, all his stuff is gone, the whole shebang. So now this massive regional war is no longer some distant conflict. It's an urgent, deeply personal crisis for one person, his uncle, Abraham. Okay, so this brings us to Act 2, an impossible rescue mission. And Abraham's response here is, well, it's not what you'd expect at all. It's immediate, it's incredibly brave, and honestly, from a purely military standpoint, it makes absolutely no sense. So the second a survivor escapes and tells Abraham what happened, he doesn't waste a second. He gathers his forces. And look at this number, 318. That's it. And get this, it's not an army. These are the trained men from his own household. Let's be really clear about what we're looking at here. 318 guys. This isn't an army, it's more like a private security force. These men, along with a few of his local allies, are about to go up against a professional 4-king military alliance that is fresh off a major victory. I mean, they just crushed 5 other kings. The odds aren't just long, they're pretty much impossible. But here's the thing. Abraham doesn't just charge in blindly. He's smart about it. He uses brilliant strategy. First, he goes after them fast, a swift pursuit all the way north to Dan. Then he divides his tiny force, which is a classic move to make your army seem bigger than it is. And then the masterstroke, a surprise attack at night. He hits them under the cover of darkness and completely routs a military camp that probably thought their job was done. And the result? It's stunning. A complete and total victory. Abraham rescues Lot, recovers all the people, and gets back all the plunder. Everything. This was a win that was so unlikely, so impossible, that you just can't explain it away with tactics. It was a huge, blinking sign that the promise God made to Abraham was the real deal. All right, Act 3, the defining choice. So the battle is won. The rescue mission is a success. You'd think the story is over, right? Nope. In a way, the real climax is just getting started. See, the most important part of this whole story isn't the physical fight. It's the choice that comes next. So on his way home, victorious, Abraham is met by 2 very different kings, and each of them is going to offer him something. This is the moment. He's presented with 2 paths, 2 totally different worldviews, and really 2 definitions of what his victory actually means. First up is Melchizedek. Now, this is a fascinating character. He's the king of Salem, which is ancient Jerusalem, and he's also called a priest of God Most High. And get this, he doesn't come to make a deal. He doesn't come to negotiate. He just brings bread and wine. These are symbols of fellowship, of blessing. It's a gift, not a transaction. And what he says is so important. He says, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, and praise be to God Most High who delivered your enemies into your hand." Notice what he does there. He blesses Abram, but he gives all the credit for the victory to God.
He reframes the entire event, shifting the focus from Abraham's amazing military feat to God's power.
Okay, so then, right on the heels of that powerful moment, the king of Sodom steps up. And his offer couldn't be more different. His is a straight-up business deal. He says, you give me back the people, you can keep all the goods. So look at the contrast. One king offers a moment of divine worship. The other offers a worldly transaction. And this right here, this is the choice that defines everything.
And Abraham's response is just perfect. He looks at the king of Sodom and says, no. He refuses everything down to a single thread. And he gives this incredible reason. He says he's doing it so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. He refuses to let any human being take credit for what God has provided.
You see, Abraham got it. He understood that true victory wasn't about the stuff you gain in the battle. That stuff was a trap. If he took it, he'd be letting the king of Sodom and the world system define his success. Instead, he made a choice. He chose to define his victory not by what he gained, but by who got the glory for it. And that really leaves us with a question for ourselves, doesn't it? When we have our own successes, our own victories, big or small, who gets the credit? Do we point to our own cleverness, our own hard work? Or do we point to something bigger? Because at the end of the day, the answer to that question might just be the truest definition of victory there is.